Well, hello. Good evening. Welcome to When Wisdom Talks. I'm Alisha.
And I'm Kadesha.
And I'm Naomi, bringing up the rear. Lord help us. Every week we doing something different.
Love it.
Welcome, each and every one of you, to When Wisdom Talks with your host, Alisha, myself, Naomi, and Kadesha. We want to thank you for all of you who tune in every single week and just let us know how much you love us. We appreciate you so much for just tuning in week after week. And if you are a newcomer, listen, go on to the chat, go to the comment section, and let us know that you are a newbie so we can give you a shout out. We want to make sure that we acknowledge you for hopping on and hanging out with us. This is another, well, you know what? This is the last Thursday. Actually, yeah, the last Thursday in March. Can somebody tell me where the month went?
Where has the time gone?
I'm just trying to figure that out. We're going into the fourth month of the year, y'all.
Yes, ma'am. We
Oh
are.
my gosh, second quarter of the year. I hope everyone is off to a great start. Maybe some of your New Year's resolutions, you've been able to check boxes off. I don't know. But we'll talk about that a little bit later on in the show. I'm not going to give it away if you haven't gotten started yet. Anyway, I just want you all to know how much we love you. And of course, you know, our mission is to empower all of you to live better and wiser through engaging discussions, fun activities, and inspiring special guests. And this week, tonight, we have a special guest, but I'm going to kick it on over to Kadesha so she can let you know what we got brewing for you tonight.
Not brewing. Yes. When you mentioned the last Thursday of the month, I'm like, oh, shoot. Tomorrow's April Fool's Day. Don't come for me, nobody, with no April Fool's jokes. I don't need it. Okay. I live with a jokester, so I don't need any more. Okay. But yes, the last Thursday of the beautiful month of March, which, as you know, has been National. Okay, help me out, Alisha. Women's History Month.
There you go.
And so we've been celebrating women all month long, which we should do anyway. But one of the things, and I know it's not just a woman thing, but one of the things that maybe we do as women is sometimes procrastinate because we have so much on our dang on plate. And so this week we are speaking or acknowledging National Procrastination Week. So we're going to be talking about that with our special guest, who I'm so excited. She just brings me so much joy. And I know she's going to bring each and every one of you joy, but she's really going to teach and impart as well. So we're looking forward to that. But before we get into the show, you know, I have to ask you to do a few things. Go ahead and share the show. When we pop up, you may see me on my phone. I promise you I'm not texting. I am sharing the show. So I want you to grab your phone and I want you to share. If you're on Facebook, it takes 2.5 seconds to share. If you're on YouTube, you have to copy the link and share it. If you are not yet following us on Instagram, we are going to get active. I promise. Go ahead and follow us at When Wisdom Talks. Alicia already mentioned, I think it was Alicia, but make sure you're commenting as we're talking to you. We want you to talk back to us. So make sure you're commenting and put the hashtag When Wisdom Talk so we can get that trending. Of course, if you want to learn about the three of us or more about our nonprofit, which is Wisdom on the Wall Inc., you can take yourself to wisdomonthewall.com. And of course, we have books, literature, and all types of stuff you can get from there as well. If you need to connect with us, we don't want you to forget. You can definitely connect with us via social media. But if you want to send us a private email, you can do that at info@wisdomonthewall.com. All right, we're hopping in. I'm sending it over to Alisha.
Woohoo! All righty. Well, this is our segment where we're going to tell you something good. Well, you guessed it. We're going to tell you something good, whether it's a good story that we personally took place in, some good news. I don't know. Whatever it is going to be good, y'all. So, uh, while we're doing that, we want you to chat away as well. If you have something good or something popped up for you that was a good story, put it in the chat because we'll definitely read it and check it out as well. So I'll go ahead and kick us off. And I guess mine tonight is a twofer, if you want to call it that, in that as Kadesha mentioned, the last day of the month, but the last day of Women's History Month. And I was watching the world news the other day, and they were doing a story on the first female fire chief in Los Angeles. So you think about, like, this is the third largest firefighting force, for lack of a better word, and this is the first time in the history of it that they've had a female chief, and she was actually being sworn in. So I want to say kudos to Kristen Crawley, who is the first, again, fire chief in Los Angeles. And at the end of the story, the newscaster said something that kind of caught my attention. And she mentioned, because I didn't know this, she mentioned that the very first female firefighter was a slave. And I was like, what? So, I end up doing my little research, and sure enough, it was. So, this is the twofer. We talked about Kristen Crawley. We had to talk about Molly Williams. Molly Williams, right there in her firefighter uniform, was the very first female firefighter in New York. And as a slave, she ended up volunteering with Oceanus Engine Company number 11. And she was actually called Volunteer number 11. And she really actually made a name for herself. First of all, by the way she dressed. Now, this is her in her formal, for lack of a better word, firefighter uniform. But there's another picture out there. If you end up Googling it, there's a picture of what she normally would wear in a firefight. And it would be her uniform or her dress as a slave. So you think about all the pictures we've seen where slaves, women with the dresses, and she would always wear a checkered apron. So she would actually fight fires with that. The other thing that she was noted for is her service, especially during the blizzard of 1818. And this was in lower Manhattan. And at that particular time, not only did they have this blizzard going on, but there was an influenza outbreak. And so pretty much in terms of their fire station, the men were gone. They were wiped out in terms of being sick. They couldn't, do their job. And this one particular day, she's at the fire station by herself. A call came in for a fire. She can't say, we can't help you. She goes out there on her own. And again, this is a blizzard. She's actually pulling this. It looks like a small a train, for lack of a better word, one of the little cabooses, but she's literally pulling this thing by herself in deep snow, again in New York. And she puts the fire out. It's the little pumper, the water pumper. I know it has an official name, but I have no clue what it is, but I'm going to describe what it did, and it just pumped the water. So what ended up happening was she gained the respect, obviously, not only from people in the community where she actually was a blessing to kind of save some lives, but from the men that she worked with. They talked about the fact that she held her own, as a female firefighter. And I think that is just so awesome. So that's my tell me something good. Again, I want to say congratulations to Kristen Crowley for that monumental and history making promotion to fire chief in LA. And I definitely want to send kudos to the late Molly Williams for being a trailblazer in a hugely male dominated field as the first female firefighter as a slave. So that's my tell me something good tonight. But I do want to say something really quickly. Like this particular month, this year for me, in terms of Women History Month, I would say has been the most profound in that
Mm-hmm.
I've learned so much about, as we were calling them, unsung sheroes. I think this is the first, not the first year that I learned something, but
Mm-hmm.
I've learned so much about different women in different fields. So I don't know if it's just that more is out there or my eyes and ears are open more, but this has
Mm-hmm.
been a great Women's History Month for me in terms of learning more about our female sisters out there. So
Yeah, yeah. I just feel like God is just really doing, making a move and making a stance, like with the
mhm.
with the changing of the guards as it relates to women. Like he's just really putting us in the forefront. I mean, we see with the what just happened with the judge, and like it's like the Deborahs. It's like the Deborah season. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
so I just feel I understand what you're saying, and I think it's just our time, right? It's not
Yeah.
to, yeah. So I'll leave it there. But um, yeah, that's exciting. But I'm listening. I'm like, snow that would have checked me off the list. Fire that would have checked me off. Like God knows what we can handle. Because Kadesha would have been crossed off the list. I don't know how many times, but somebody she was the one. She was the one. So it's like that's amazing. That's awesome. So my tell me something good. So Thursdays are kind of like as I'm winding down for the week, I try to find something to do to relax sometimes. And so briefly, I was able to catch up on some Hallmark movies. And I'm just the sappy Hallmark movies. That's just me, right? So it's nothing like a good meal in front of a Hallmark. Mike's not here. Like I'm just all into it, right? But the movies were somewhat had some similar storylines. And so it included like characters who tend to overwork and didn't, forgot to prioritize family, right? And so they were reminded, at a wedding or a special occasion on how important family really is. And so it made me think about just this Saturday, we celebrated my aunt who turned 70, who looks amazing. And so she just was really like, she loved it. Like it was something small and intimate at my sister's house, but it meant the world to her. And so like her sons aren't here. And so like we're all her favorite nieces. And so we step in as as her daughters, to fill in the gap. And so her and my uncle, their birthdays are like a day apart. And so one of the things that she said was like, I didn't have to share this day. Like, and she never gets a cake. And we had a cake. It's like it was so meaningful to her, right? And we're just gathered around, they playing Pacino and just doing regular family stuff. But it's like it meant everything for us all to be there for her. And so just seeing those movies and then celebrating my aunt just help me to recognize that, and to really the point that I'm getting to is to encourage everybody that when it comes to procrastination, like let's not forget about family and let's not put that off, because we only get one, right? And we just want to hold on to them for as long as we can, but it's like we only get one, so let's make sure that we make time for that. And so that's my tell me something good. My favorite aunt. Well, all my aunts are my favorite, but the joke was like I was her favorite niece, and everybody was like, "Well, I thought I was your favorite niece," So, but it's like she babysat me when I was young, and so anywho, turned 70, looking great, hoping to have her another 70 more. So, but yeah, family is key. Family's important. That's my story, and I'm sticking to
Oh,
it.
now which aunt was that?
This is, well, Aunt Jocelyn is her government name, but we call her Aunt Lolly.
Oh, happy birthday, Aunt Lolly. Woo-hoo.
I was going to say the same thing. So I'll just say ditto to what Alisha said. That was going to be my segue to say happy birthday. But Kadesha, I share your sentiments. Family is so important. And I was having this conversation with my husband and just realizing that, the pandemic kind of gave us that gift, where a lot of us were forced to reconnect with loved ones, even if it was virtually or however. And I think that was one of the huge takeaways, even for me, that family is valuable and to really, really cherish your loved ones. And so Titus, my husband and I, Titus, shout out to Titus, we decided that we were going to recommit to having Sunday be that day where we disconnect from everything, work, all that stuff, and just really focus on family because it's so valuable. And especially when you have young ones, because they are not going to be that young forever. I'm thinking my son just turned 13. 5 years, he'll be 18 and he'll be off to college and doing new things. So family is so important. I'm glad you brought that up, Kadesha. Well, family, my tell me something good has to do with family. I love it because this particular video is so cool because this young lady decided to find a unique way to surprise her mother to let her know that she is having a baby. So I just want you to look at the video and, just let me know what you think. Okay, here we go. Here we go.
Our morning that time of day. Here we go. A woman in Jersey wanted to surprise her mom by telling her she was pregnant. So she gave her mom a little present, and it had a note attached.
Read it. It says, "You've been promoted from dog grandma to human grandma."
Oh, very nice.
Do you not understand? Are you kidding me? Oh my God!
Her mom didn't quite understand it first, but don't you love a mom? Mom's like, that's great.
Right,
That's
exactly.
great. Saw that ultrasound, and then there it went. Oh, head motions came out. Oh, that is so cute.
Allie Jackson.
I thought that was so adorable. So shout out to all the fur moms and dads out there. I got to give you your shout out, your props. Telling you having a pet is work, I'm sure. But I just thought that was so sweet that she would surprise her like that. You've been promoted from dog grandma to human grandma, and it took mom a second.
It did.
And you know what's funny? Because that just shows the love of a parent. Like, it doesn't matter what you show them or give them. They're going to say, oh, that's nice, honey. Oh, that's
right.
Nice. Not have a clue what it is you're showing them. Have no idea what you're talking about. But because they love you and they just want to encourage you. Oh, that's nice, honey. It's like, let me just say, all the parents, that is on autopilot. If you're getting ready to be a parent, trust me, that's going to be on autopilot. That's nice, honey. You're going to go to that on default. Okay, I'm just letting you know. But I just thought that video was so sweet. And, especially during the pandemic, we saw so many people having babies and having to be creative in how they shared with the family that they were having a baby or the reveal, all of that. So I just thought that was so cool. And what makes it so wonderful is now that families are able to come back into each other's presence, it makes those announcements even more special because it's like, oh, that's so real.
I love the daughter. She was like, do you not understand?
Exactly.
I expected something a little more bigger in terms of this announcement and your reaction to it. That was funny. But when you were mentioning the fur babies, I don't know how many cars I have been behind that have a bumper sticker. I have I'm a grand pup mom or something like that. And it's just like, wow, so many people have, animals right now in place of, as she mentioned, the human babies. Yeah. It's just like,
because trust me, you will get your fill with a pet as well as a child. It takes work, and you have to do for them longer than you do, your small one, because they don't ever get to cook for themselves. You're gonna have to feed them. You're gonna have to take them outside to use the bathroom.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
That is so true. I want a dog so bad. And it's because of that that I don't, because I'm like, it's like having a baby. I don't have time for that, but I do want a dog. I tell you, we shall
Kendra
see.
talking about I have 2 grandcats and they are going on vacation. She said they're going on vacation. They're going on vacation with them. So okay. So Jean had to talk me off the ledge the other day. So y'all know we had that bad storm, a week and a half ago, snow, wind everywhere. And so I'm sitting at my desk, which is looking out the window, and I see these 2 little cats running for shelter. And I'm like, my heart, like, Lord. And then I'm like, I can't bring no cats in here. And so Jean was like, Kadesha, I know your heart. But Mike was like, Mike did come up with a compromise. He's like, maybe we can build them a little shelter outside. So, but I did think about these cats roaming around, bringing them on in. But
Did he build it? Did he build the shelter?
no, child. Well, the snow left. The snow left. So,
It was a nice idea.
it was a nice idea. He would do it though. But I did think about bringing in some cats up in here, but we're gonna put that on pause for now, and we'll resume at the appropriate time.
I love it. I love it. Exactly right.
Next thing we know, she gonna have a bumper sticker on the back of her car.
Her mama. No, yeah, but that's exactly cat mom. Oh my gosh, Sharpie, too funny. I love it. Also, well, this has been great, ladies. But I'm excited about this next segment, so I'm gonna shoot it back over to you, Kadesha.
Honey, excitement. I don't know if excitement is the word. Whatever excitement times 3 is, that's what I am. So I am looking forward to it. Like I said, we are, I don't even want to say honoring, but we are acknowledging National Procrastination Week. Okay, it is a week. It is. Look it up. Okay, Alisha found it. It's a week. I promise you it is. And so, seriously, on a serious note, we understand the assignment, right? So when we hear that this person's talking about it, this person's talking about it, this person, and that's really has been happening. There's been many teachers and people just speaking on procrastination. And so we feel like it's something that God wants to say to us, because we may or may not fall into the category. Okay. We may or may not, but we believe that there's something that our dear sister friend has something to say about it. And so I want to read a little bit about her. She is a clinical psychologist, Mrs. Dr. Well, how are we going to do this? Because now you got all these titles. Dr. Shalon Irvin. But she is a clinical psychologist. And Alisha talked about LA. She's on the West Coast. She's in Seattle, Washington. She was my dear roommate. First of all, she's already an angel because she was my roommate when I was super raw and uncut. Okay. Spelman College, freshman year, 18, straight from the city of Wilmington, and had no sense. Okay. So already she gets kudos for that. But she really does a lot of work in mental health, and she's passionate about it. She has a private practice. She has worked with the VA in several places in Atlanta VA, West Virginia VA, and now she's back, like I said, on the West Coast. And she does a lot of talks on anxiety and PTSD. Like, she toured all the way up at the Live on Purpose conference because she helped us to recognize that veterans aren't the only ones that experience PTSD. And so she just really opened up our eyes. And so nonetheless, she just recently did a talk on procrastination at the church. And I'm like, can you come on the show? Because that's what we're talking about. So without further ado, we are going to bring out my sister friend, my girl, my sister from another mother, Dr. Shalon Irvin.
Hey, y'all. Glad to be here.
Glad to have you. Thank you again for making the time, my dear.
Of course. I moved stuff around so I could be here because this is important, and I want to be here with y'all.
So we want you to get us all the way unstuck, honey. So I know you said that you were, I think it was just this weekend, you did a talk at a church. Mm-hmm. And so it's just been that word procrastination has been lingering in the spirit. So talk to us about procrastination. Like, I mean, we know what it is, but like if you want to define it, but tell us where, okay, how can we get unstuck? What are the root causes? Like, take us deep. Just get us all the way together.
So procrastination, how I am defining it while I'm talking to you, because I believe operational definitions are important. Because sometimes we use a word and it means something different to each of us. So what I'm speaking on is the action of unnecessarily and voluntarily delaying or postponing something despite knowing that there's going to be a negative consequence for doing so. So not doing it, knowing that there's a consequence, but just not doing it. I fall in that category often. So I'm preaching to myself as I'm talking to y'all. So we're in this together. But that is how I would define procrastination. I think that encompasses everything in it, but there are subcategories of procrastination. So sometimes when people say the word, what the reason they are procrastinating may be a little different. So that is why there's not a one fix for everybody. So root cause may be different, and until we get to the root cause, we can't get unstuck.
So we have many root causes because we're all different. But what are there some common themes as it relates to, okay, this girl or this guy is procrastinating because of X?
Yes. So for some, it may be perfectionism. If I can't do it perfectly, I'm just not going to do it all. So then they wait until the last minute. For some, it may be fear of failure. I don't want to start because this is new to me and I'm used to excelling and I'm not sure I will excel. So I'm just going to not do anything. Some fear that others will be critical of what they do. So they just don't do it. Avoidance is a big one, just because all of that encompasses avoidance. Sometimes that can tap into our low self-esteem because once again, if we don't know we can excel, we may not touch on it. Some of us have self-deprecating talk. So when we hear that talk, it can pause us and make us not move forward. Depression and anxiety can come as a subproduct of procrastination or even trauma. Sometimes moving forward can be related to those, so people don't do them. Some people also have trouble focusing. So if you have trouble focusing, it's going to be hard to complete a task. So it can appear as procrastination.
Wow.
And in addition to that, a lack of vision. So sometimes people do stuff that doesn't fit into their vision for life, or they haven't tapped into their vision for life. So there's no meaning or purpose behind their actions. So they just don't move.
Are y'all listening to this? Somebody over in the chat said, me, Deborah, which one is me? Which one you referring to? Because you listed so many, and help me, because to me, when you said these things like fear of failure, fear of critical, like perfectionism, like to me, I feel like this stuff started when we was a kid. Like, look, like who taught us, or you know what I mean? Like, what was the influences or the environment that we were in that like told us failure was a bad thing? You know what I mean?
I mean, it does start really early. Our self-talk is usually a reflection of how others have talked to us. Usually how we interpret things, especially as a young child, like you get those messages and then they carry on. And also how we learn. Like we all learn very differently, but in the modern school system, this is how you learn. And if you don't learn this way, there's a problem with it. And that often causes procrastination because we have creative minds. We have people who learn through auditory. We have people who learn through doing. And if you're not able to tap into those things, you can feel like you're a failure when you're really not. It's just not the way that you move. So we really have to look at it broader versus this very narrow scope, because there's not a narrow scope because we're all unique. And that also causes us to not tap into who we are and what our vision is, and then we get stuck.
Wow. That is huge right there. Oh my goodness gracious. But I was kind of thinking the same thing you were thinking too, Kadesha, in terms of like where did this all come from? But as you were talking, it just makes me reflect on when you think about school, it's performance based. You get A's, B's, C's, or whatever. and your goal is to get an A. So if I'll be honest, I'll be transparent. My thing is perfectionism. It's like if I can't do it to the fullest, then I don't want to do it, or I'll push it off. And I think a piece of that goes to fear of failure, because you don't want to fail. And I think back as we're talking, that was like the big thing, getting straight A's in school. And again, it's that what you're taught, you're taught to excel. Nobody wants you to fail. And it kind of can get warped, if you're not looking at it correctly. So yeah, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that piece of it.
And as you say, failure, one thing that we need to really look at is, what is our relationship with failure? Does failure, when you don't complete a task, mean that you are a failure? Or does it mean that you just weren't able to do that task and try again? So the closer we connect what we do with who we are, the more likely we're going to procrastinate and fall into this cycle, because what we do is not always who we are.
It's deep. Oh my god.
But I'm sitting here thinking about, and Naomi, you have children, so chime in. It's like, how I'm so concerned about our little people, right? Like, how do we retrain them and restructure their school environment? If we know this, like, how do we do it differently? I mean, we're older, right? And I mean, we still can change, but I'm like, man, they're so impressionable at that age. It's like, how can we prevent them from getting to where we are in our adult age?
A lot of it is your reaction to when they fail. What do you tell them? What message do you send? If you send, oh, you didn't get an A on this, like I was taught B means bad. So I'm like, oh, if B means bad, I can't have B's. And I internalize that. So it's really the message we send, because we all are going to fail, which just means that the first time you may not get it, the second time, whatever it may be. But what message are you sending to them, and how are you reinforcing that failure when they do? What are the words that you share with them when that does happen? How do you motivate them to move beyond? Because if you just punishment is not effective. It does the opposite.
Oh my gosh, Dr. Shalon, I was going to say the same thing, because, and it's so funny that we're having this conversation, because a similar thing just happened. And I had to talk to my daughter. She's a high performer and she's used to getting A's and B's, and she made the honor roll, but there was one class where she got a C. And so we had to have that conversation. And I said, listen, if that C was something that you worked really hard for, then be proud of that. You got A's and B's in all your other classes. It would be very unfair for us to be upset because you have that one C. But let's talk about what happened, because we don't know what could have happened. I said, what happened in that class? So those open discussions make them feel comfortable with letting us know if things are falling behind. A lot of times children get afraid to tell their parents, to talk to their parents about when they're losing focus, when they're falling behind, because they're fearful of the response. But if you create an environment where the children feel safe to share, when they get into those situations, they will open up to you. However, if you close them off, and as Dr. Shalon said, you start to punish them without even listening to them, you've already set them up. You've already lost them. And so that's huge in our house, that open dialogue. Just tell me, you need coach class? All right, well, let's talk to the teacher, find out how we can get that,
Yes.
And it's funny, we were talking about animals earlier, because that's what I can relate to, is having animals. And they're very similar. When you're teaching a dog how to sit or to go fetch a bone, it's like when you reward them, they understand that what they're doing is the right thing, right? But it's like if you punish them, then it's kind of like they go in the closet and, they don't respond well. So it's not even just with little people, it's, with the fur animals as well. But Kendra said something over here that I think is worth talking about. She said, another thing for me is that I actually seem to work best under pressure, but then that pressure becomes overwhelming, so I put it off. So that was one of the things that we talked about in this leadership training I just had this past weekend, where we talked about procrastination, that one of the myths or lies that we tell ourselves is that we work better under pressure. But the reality is, at least for me, and it seems like for Kendra too, and others, is that it really does come with anxiety. Once we wait to last minute, it's like that it's like it's heightened at that point. So it's like, can you speak to that? Like, what is that telling us, that we work better under pressure? But it's like, is that really true?
To a degree, it may be true, but that taps into that perfectionism, because when you have a short amount of time, you just have to dive in and do it. So there's several different types of procrastinators. You have maybe the performer or the perfectionist, where they often think, I can wait until the last minute and do it, because it's really feeding into their perfectionism. Like, okay, let me get it done. I have to do it, so I don't have time to not, because anxiety can motivate us. Mm-hmm. So sometimes when we have a level of anxiety, it's like, I just got to get it done, and we shut everything down. We also have others who are dreamers. Like, they have all of these ideas, but because of those ideas, they can't get past what's in their mind and actually apply them. So it's like, well, what about this? And what about this? You also have people who worry, so that stops them from moving. You have the defier, which is also sometimes the people, well, I can do it in 10 minutes. So they put themselves under that pressure because they're trying to challenge themselves. And that can be good or bad. Yeah, people who also can be called crisis makers, like when they're in crisis mode, because we as humans sometimes are addicted to chaos. So when there's chaos, we can get it done because that's what we're used to. So that is another reason why a lot of people put that additional pressure on themselves to get it done. And then like the overdoer falls into that too. So there's just various reasons people do it. And you just have to tap into, once again, the root cause of, why am I doing it? What message was I told that makes me believe this? And is it true?
I think this is really the first step to really overcoming, actually hearing what causes it and seeing yourself somewhere on that spectrum. Because I don't think we talk about it much. Of course, we internalize it, and in our mind, we're going over these things, but to actually hear it, to me, is like, yeah, it's eye-opening.
I want to take it a step further, because oftentimes the message that we get when we hear about procrastination is that it's due to a lack of motivation or lack of discipline or lack of self-control. So once again, if you're internalizing that message, whether it may be or not, you're already punishing yourself. Like, I'm not motivated. Why can't I be motivated? I must not have discipline because I can't get this done, or I have no self-control because my mind is wandering. But there's a new school of thought, which I buy into, that says procrastination is really an issue with managing our emotions. We have an interesting relationship with emotions. We gravitate to good emotions and we don't want bad emotions, but I don't believe they're good or bad. It's what we do with the emotions, because emotions are just signals to us to let us know how in tune we are with our environment. So when we ignore those emotions, then we put ourselves in bad situations. So really, it's not about, so this new school says it's not about managing your time. It's more about managing your emotions. So if you think about a task and it brings you anxiety, you may not start it. You may decide, I'm going to clean up today, even though cleaning is not fun. You're like, I'm still productive, but I'm just not doing the tasks that I set forth, because that task may bring on fear, may bring on anxiety, may bring on guilt. So we have to also look at that emotional component, because the emotions really tell us a lot about ourselves.
That is so good. And that seems so true, because when you think about it, when you think about being a perfectionist or the fear of failure, there are emotions that are tied to that. So if you're trying to avoid the negative emotion, then it's going to cause you to do that. That's why you're the doctor.
When I heard it explained by that, I could believe it. Because once again, going back to the punishment, like when I heard it, you're just not disciplined. It didn't motivate me to be disciplined. It motivated me to self-deprecate and to say, why can't I? And to start trying to be more disciplined when that wasn't really the issue. It's, I'm anxious about this. This is scary for me. I'm fearful. This reminds me of something in my past where I failed. So that's what we're holding on to, not so much the time. And until we process through that, procrastination is going to stay, and that's how we're going to stay stuck. So you're stuck in the emotion.
Wow. I'm sitting here like, I'm just going to have to replay this slowly a few times, because it's so much. But it's making me want to like just sit and self-reflect and figure out exactly what is those root causes. I mean, I feel like I have a piece of a lot of them, but like, what is that root cause? But now the emotion thing that you're saying, that's just bringing up, like, that makes me want to just sit and think, okay, well, what emotion comes when I have to do a certain task, so being more intentional about paying attention to the emotions that I'm feeling when certain activities or tasks are brought before me. This is like,
yes. So that's why when the person was saying me, and you could fit in several categories, that is common because you may procrastinate for different reasons for different tasks.
That's good.
Like some people, like my phone will ring and I'm like, I know they're going to bring a lot on this conversation, so I don't feel like calling them back right now. But then I'll get on the phone and call somebody else. So it's like, it's not the phone call. What is the reason I'm procrastinating and doing that? So you have to look at, you may fit in all those categories for different tasks in your life.
Wow. And so you saying that, and I remember you doing that in school, but you saying that is like, because some of us avoid conflict, right? So, or don't want to confront conflict, because I'm like, dang, I'm thinking about somebody I need to call now in terms of a client. And I'm like, how are we going to maneuver this? But it's like, I don't, we don't want to bump heads, but that could be the cause of why I would procrastinate or something like that. They are blowing the chat up, honey. Let's see. We have, oh, hey, Darlisa, she's on there. We have Daryl's on here. He said, I got in trouble in school. That's why Alicia's so smart. Because he was getting all the beatings. He helped her get good grades. That is too funny.
Then personal stories.
Let's correct that. He did not help me get good grades. Well, I guess because he was deterring them by getting the beatings. Is that what he's saying? Bless his heart.
Here go Aunt Linda. What's Aunt Linda say? That's me. I'd rather be under pressure in order to do what I have to do.
And that pressure thing can also serve as another motivating factor, not necessarily in a positive way, but if I tell myself, well, I did this the night before. Had I done it earlier, I might have got 100. So it gives you wiggle room to not feel like you are a failure because you are blaming the time factor on it.
Oh, wow.
Creepers, this is like next level stuff. Who would ever have thought that?
Oh my God. You start ahead of time and then you still don't. What message does that send once again?
Wow. I feel like, are there any, do you recommend any resources, any books that talk about this stuff? Like,
I wouldn't say necessarily books, but I would, because I'm a therapy advocate. I'm a therapist who has a therapist, so I'm just not preaching to the choir. That reflection piece you spoke on is so important, but sometimes reflecting in our own thoughts won't do it, because our own thoughts have been filtered through our own lens of life. So reflecting with either an accountability partner, finding a therapist, finding a coach, so where they can point out patterns that you may not see. I think the act of doing is so important. So yeah, you can read up on this, but then if it's causing you not to apply it, you're nowhere closer to your goal. So I would say having that accountability partner, and a lot of us don't want to have that accountability partner, because I know, like, when I have a task, I'm like, I don't want them to know I'm not on my stuff. So it's just going to stay here. And that is the purpose of that accountability partner, just so that there's someone else who can say, okay, you've got a week, let's get this done, and hold you accountable in a loving way, not the punishing way.
And isn't it so much easier to hold others accountable than it is ourselves? Yeah. I don't know. Maybe that's just my story.
No, because your emotions aren't attached. Like when someone else tells me a story, my personal emotions aren't attached to that. So I can weave through and tell them everything, because there's emotions aren't keeping me stuck, because it's what you're going through.
Right. Carolyn said, I am getting my freedom tonight.
Freedom, yes.
Join the crowd, Carolyn.
We were literally just talking about this earlier. I said, girl, make sure you tune in tonight, because that's a conversation that her and I have often about, just this delay spirit.
Delay. Yes. And setting too large goals without breaking it down. Like if the goal is too large, it's going to overwhelm you. So maybe setting your day, scheduling it in 15-minute blocks instead of hour blocks. Like if I can read for 15 minutes, I can check this off and feel accomplished. Now, if you do 30, great. You've done more, but you're training your brain and you're training yourself in a pattern of I can do this versus, okay, I need to study for 4 hours. That's probably not going to happen.
Bro, you got that right. 4 hours of me studying. You know, I would be fall asleep in a minute, Shalon.
Yes, sleep won't come easy at night, but try to study or do something that you really don't want to do. I guarantee you're going to fall asleep.
Wow. So what if there is one, because there may be one that may not know if they're procrastinating, or like, are there some signs that or something that's pointing us like, okay, you may be headed down this line or down this path, like, or what do we do if we're going down that path? How can we make a turn, make a shift?
So recognize how you spend your day. So look at your day and say, how am I getting it started? Once again, going back to, are there certain tasks that get done very quickly? Are there things that don't get done very quickly? Are you one who waits to the last minute every time? Because that can be a sign. Are you someone who worries a lot? Like, so you want to look at all of those symptoms, but being easily distracted, not being organized, feeling tired a lot, those are indications that procrastination may come. Because sometimes it's not physical exhaustion. It's, I know that emotion is going to take me out, so we're just not going to do it.
Look at Alicia. Alicia, you ready to pass the offering bucket or what?
Look, I'm over here like, girl. I'm writing notes and I'm like, oh my God, everything you're saying, I'm trying to write down, but I think I'm going to have to do your number, Kadesha. Go back and
I can't. I'm not
play
even going
this
to.
thing.
Look, Dr. Shalonda is all in the Kool-Aid and she know the flavor.
It's red.
You in my Kool-Aid. I'm telling you.
She's making us bleed.
OMG, this is
Oh
too
my
much. I feel like we all need to be on the Dr. Irving couch, like,
You know?
at a time.
I might be joining you there because, like I said, I'm part of the club too. So,
Oh my goodness, this is too much. So, some ways for us to start to crawl out of this. So, I heard you speak about accountability. That's huge. I feel like we need to mention that again because I think, you know, we've been celebrating women all month. Sometimes women like to do things in isolation. We create these stories in our head that we don't need people to do X, Y, and Z. But to overcome this thing here, I heard you mention accountability. So that's one of the ways. Any other ways that we can start overcoming this thing?
reducing multitasking. Now, I know that's the hard one because sometimes we think we're so productive because we're multitasking. I'm doing this, I'm responding to this email, but you're not focused. So you are going to burn yourself out way more, or you're going to pay particular attention to something that's a little easier to do so that you can feel successful. But then that other thing is still sitting there. And at the end of the day, when you've gotten through your day, yes, you're tired, you got all these things done, but then there's that task that's sitting there looking at you. Like, but you didn't touch me. And you carry it over and you carry it over and you carry it over and it still doesn't get done, which then impacts your self-esteem. So although multitasking is something that we all commonly do and it makes us feel good in the moment, it has major detrimental impacts at the end, but it can be a good identifier of what you're avoiding.
Like them taxes that my accountant emailing me about.
Yes, because I mean, especially in this tax season where many of the deductions have been taken out, like I don't want to look at what I may have to pay. We're not doing this today. I'm already overwhelmed. The news is on, like all this is going on. I don't want to take on those emotions, so I'm going to avoid them and I'm going to watch Netflix. Because I've earned it because I did all these other things.
I did. That's why I could watch my homework.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. I'm over here like you are just reading my mail because I think I'm like the queen of multitasking. And I always wore that as like a badge of honor. Like, you know, I could do this and I could do that. But you're right. Like your focus is diverted. There is no way you can do everything correctly and succinctly and completely and whatever other word we can use there. Yeah, get out of my mail.
But I think
I will.
Kool-Aid.
Yes,
What
red
she said,
Kool-Aid.
she said the flavor was red, not cherry,
Not
but red.
Red.
But I think what you touched on, because many of us say that we're exhausted, and it really is the mental, because we're doing 35,000 things, checking the email, trying to drive through the red light, ordering grocery. We're doing so much, and that makes us mentally tired, exhausted. And then we wonder why, because we've been multitasking all day, that we're drained by the end of the night.
One more thing that nobody wants to hear, including myself,
Uh-oh.
is disconnecting. So disconnecting from the internet, disconnecting from your phone, disconnecting from your smart device. Because what's actually happening, because we live in this world where everything's at our fingertips, is we're training our brain to think that things need to be instantaneous. And what these things do, like if you find yourself playing a game on your phone or watching TV, is it's sending you automatic dopamine, which makes you feel better. So some of these difficult tasks don't bring you that hormone. They don't make you feel better. So you avoid them for things that do, and you sit and do nothing that's productive, but it's something that's making you feel better. So the art of disconnecting is a real thing, because sometimes you can feel like when you're not doing something fun that you have attention deficit disorder. But what it really is your brain is like, nope, give me the dopamine. Let's find something fun.
That's good, because that's confirmation. We dealt with that last week, the National Day of Unplugging, and you took it to a different level with regards to it. Yeah, that's good. So thank you for confirming that we were on the right track.
You're on the right track. You are training your brain for instant, like, give it to me now. And that's not how long-term goals work.
And you know what just came to my mind? A lot of children now are being diagnosed with ADHD. However, that might not be the issue. It's just that they are so plugged into technology that, like you said, it's that addiction to the dopamine, or that attachment to that. That just opened my eyes. I'm just saying. So thank you for that.
That and divided attention. Like when I worked a lot with trauma survivors, they were like, I don't have a good memory. I can't do this. But what was actually happening is their mind was bombarded with safety. So they weren't hearing what was happening. They weren't in tune. So sometimes what we think when we have a bad memory is not truly a bad memory. It's you're not forming the memory because your mind is somewhere else.
And that's really deep for, some of the students, particularly who are in inner cities. How can they focus on English, math, and social studies if they have things going on at home that require their attention, So that's deep.
And that fits in with procrastination. Especially nowadays, like we are being conditioned to think that this chaos we're living in is normal. And yes, it may be normal in the sense of it's happening frequently, but it's not healthy. And there's a difference between what's normal and what's healthy. So because we're being conditioned, okay, we're in a pandemic, but you still need to work. Wars are going on, but you still need to work. Gas prices are what they are, but you still need to work. Food prices, our basic levels of survival are being challenged daily, but we're still having to go to work. We're still having to do some of the higher level functioning, but science says when your basic needs are not met, you can't focus on those things. So a lot of this also goes to lack of focus because we are being conditioned to live in chaos, and that's not how our bodies are wired.
Speaking of gas, I was told my client from California is over here today, and she was like, "Oh my, I love these gas prices over here." So apparently, ma'am, y'all are, well, I don't know where you are in Washington,
It's still high.
$6 and $7.
But you see how you're conditioned to that? Because even if it's $4 last year, I would have been complaining. Like, I'm not paying this, even though I still was putting it in. But now I'm like, ooh, $4. So that's how conditioning works.
Yeah.
Matter of perspective. Oh my gosh, yes. You know what you were talking about? There are no resources out there, and therapy. That's good, but I think you may need to be the one to create this resource here. I mean, we definitely talk about authorship. You may need to think about that. I mean, because everybody can't get to you because we would want to come to you. So yeah, you might want to think about that thing.
I'll think about it, but part of the reason I was hesitant to do it because one of my ways of procrastinating is reading. And I'm like, ooh, if I'm gaining the information, then that's good. But I'm like, but you're still not applying it.
So Alicia brings up a good point. So now that we are doing a lot of things virtually, people can utilize your services, even with you being on the West Coast. So tell us how we can get in contact with you if we want to have you out for a speaking engagement, even if that speaking engagement is virtual, or if somebody wants to sit on your virtual couch.
Yes, I have a website. It is drshalon.com, and that has all the ways in which you can connect with me, whether it be Instagram, email, phone. I do respond, so that is the best way to get in touch with me because it has all the avenues to do so.
I love it. drshalon.com. What we have on Linda saying over here. Did you type that in the chat, Naomi?
Yes, no, I was going to ask a question. So, doctor, is it abbreviated or spelled all the way out?
Oh, sorry. DRCHALON.com.
Perfect.
I'm going to put it in here too. I think I got it right.
Yeah, I got it.
What's Aunt Linda over here saying? When I was younger as a teenager, I was sent to a psychologist and he told me I know how to analyze myself.
I can relate to that. That's how I got into the field. So yes, but it still does help to have somebody who is good, because not everybody's good, be able to hold you accountable. I'll say that not everybody's going to be a good match. So don't judge the field by someone you don't connect with, because you're not going to connect with everybody.
That's right. I mean, that's life. You ain't going to connect with everybody, but there is the one. So before we go, any closing thoughts, anything you want to tell us so we can get ourselves on the track of non-procrastinating?
Yes, do not beat yourself up for what you didn't do. Take the next day to move forward. Write out those goals, break them down by time. I'm going to spend 10 minutes focused on this, and don't overwhelm yourself trying to perform. You are enough as you are. These are just enhancements to help you enhance the world.
No, we can do it because Shalon said we can.
You can do it, and then once you start believing it, you will.
Yes, I love it. This was so good. Oh, yes. I'm gonna have to replay, like I said. Go back and watch the replay. Thank you so much for taking some time out on your busy scheduled day, week, year.
Well, thank you, and I would love to come back if another topic presents.
Yes, ma'am. We'd love to have you. Woohoo! Love you, lady.
Love you too. See you later.
Bye. OMG.
Are y'all full as a tick, as they say?
Oh my goodness. They say you can stick me and I'll pop. Is that what it is? Whatever. Wow.
So good.
That was
I'm ready to pick up my journal. I'm ready to talk to myself, talk to God, and then find me accountability partner.
Oh my God. That part is definitely bringing out the accountability and being open to. I remember saying that in a conversation we were having, like accepting your help, like as people come or even as you're looking, really being open to receiving somebody, because nobody likes to hear that they're less than perfect. Nobody wants to hear that, but it's important to embrace hearing things that can enhance you, as Dr. Shalon said. I like the way she put it. Enhance, because you're enough.
Absolutely. And it's like we're supposed to be less than perfect. Like, I think we need to just retrain our minds, because God doesn't even expect us to be perfect. That's something we placed on ourselves and other people placed on us. But that's not his expectation of us.
That's right.
You know, so
Yeah.
people are just thanking us in the chat, thanking Dr. Shalon. They really enjoyed this. I mean, they were talking up a storm on that other side. So
That's awesome. Awesome.
I think, can we do a woosah?
Woosah.
Like a deep breath or what? Oh my
Wow.
goodness.
She is
Well,
awesome. Yeah.
Yes.
pretty amazing. Pretty amazing. So it's funny. So one of a good friend that we both, Dr. Shalon and I, went to school with, I thought she said this quote, but really it was Benjamin Franklin who said, "Don't put off until tomorrow what you can do today." And so I think that's a perfect way to end it. Why wait till tomorrow? Tomorrow isn't promised. We are committing to make the most of each day. So we appreciate each and every one of you. Dr. Shalon, we appreciate you so much again for being here. And we look forward to what's going to happen next week. So we hope that you'll be here same time next week, Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Of course, this episode, When Wisdom Talks, was brought to you by Wisdom on the Wall, Inc. and Be Inspired Global. Remember, we are empowering you 3 times a week. So this is our third stop. And until we see you again, we want you to stay safe, stay blessed, and stay in faith. And we're going to add one. Stay enhancing. What she say? We enhancing the world. We're going to stay enhancing. But have a good night, y'all.
See ya.